how to manage my time, your time a little bit better. Have you ever thought about this? Like, guys, I don't know if this is how you feel, but I definitely feel like time's just passing by so fast. Like, it was 2020, the weird pandemic was happening, and then 2021 passed by, and 2022. Like, to be honest with you, I don't really honestly remember 2023 and 2024 for good or bad or ugly or worse. Like, do you remember it? And there's so many things on my plate, as probably are on your plate as well. And you're probably thinking like, okay, Bismillah, yani, I wanted to do this, learn Arabic, perhaps, read a book a week, keep up with friends, ignite relationships with old relatives, stop playing golf, polo, travel more, right? So if you want to travel more, and 23 and 24, you only traveled one time, like, you're going to have to take stock, right? You're going to like, yeah, when am I going to live my dreams? Like, what are you doing? You're probably working like most of us. But, does your work not afford you enough time to travel? Or are you and me not self-organizing ourselves better, right? Think about it, okay? Let's talk to the real estate agents, the young, the old, the new, the ugly, the beautiful, everybody. No real estate agents ugly. I'm just making conversational remarks. But especially for the young ones, like the ones who are like less than 3 years old or less than 2 years old or 1 year old, if you're not using a calendar to manage your time, then I'm going to strongly urge you to stop doing this. And I was talking to some younger agents the other day, and I said to them, like, look, think about this. Really think about this. If you meet anybody who is, from a financial perspective, successful, are they generally quite organized or are they disorganized? Like, leave the exceptions. The exceptions are perhaps artists, performers who you might have grown up looking at, that they're not organized. They might be late to a show. Or like, I think anybody who's ever been to a concert has been to a concert where the main people who were supposed to play, the concert started at 7. They ended up coming at 11 or 10. Have you ever been there? No? Maybe the younger crowd's not been there. I've been there in the younger days. Now, the point I'm trying to make is, like, because they were very disorganized. Like, maybe they were at a party somewhere. Maybe they were having dinner, whatever it was. But bar them, everybody else you will come across who's financially, I'm talking about from a financial perspective, actually even religiously and spiritually, they're quite disciplined. They're quite organized, right? You don't find people not being organized and disciplined. And, this was an interesting comment that one of my friends made, Ali. And he said, like, Fahd, Islam helps and it's about discipline. Because, like, if you think about it, in Islam, not only, so the first pillar of the faith is that you worship no other deity other than Allah. So you direct all your worship to only one creator. And right after that is, if you enter Islam, is you pray 5 times a day, is if you're of age, right? Which technically is like from 10 onwards, you got to pray 5 times a day. So imagine, that takes discipline. But there's lots, like millions of Muslims around the world, they pray 5 times a day on time. Right? So there are some Muslims who'll end up praying 5 times at the end of the day. And then there are certain rules and regulations within Islam that allows some privilege. So if you're traveling, you can pray a little bit later, or you can connect 2 prayers. If you're sick, you could miss a prayer, you can make it up. There's other reasons and requirements that you could miss a prayer, but then, you make them up afterwards, right? But the point is that it requires discipline. So the point I was trying to make to the people, to the friends, to the family, to the agents is, everybody successful that you've most likely met runs an organized way his time or his schedule, right? So if you're an agent and you wish to be successful, rake in the millions by God's will, or billions, how can you not be organized? Think about it. And if you're a young agent, then guys, listen, Google Calendar is your friend. It's going to simplify your week as a real estate agent massively. So, more than 10 years ago, I was not using Google Calendar. It's actually very funny. Very recently, I looked at my Google Calendar meetings from 10, 12 years ago. Like, I went, and some of those meetings I still remember that this day I was there. And I went into Google Calendar, I looked at that meeting, I was like, yeah, I see I was there. And then sometimes I was like, yeah, who was I meeting on that day afterwards? I can refer back to my Google Calendar. But I remember more than 10 years ago, I started missing meetings. Like, I was over scheduling meetings. I was I was putting two people at the same time. And, I had to drive around Dubai. And I would be like, oh, shucks, I never thought about going to this other meeting that's going to be across town because I put it in. Like, let's say I'm in Dubai Sports City, and then I've got to be back on Sheikh Zayed Road, the main area where the office is, where my office used to be at the end of that meeting. Like, I never took into account half an hour travel time. So, I'd make people wait, so on and so forth. Then I started realizing that, look, everything should be put into a calendar. You could be using a notebook, but I would strongly suggest using Google Calendar because it does give you some options for reminders by SMS, by email. I think a call reminder also back in the day. I don't know if they still do that now or not, but it's a good source for you to organize yourself. So first of all, everybody else who's doing well is organized. Would you like to do well? Say yes. Then I think it makes sense for you to be organized as well. And if you actually start organizing yourself, you'll realize that you'll start reducing your stress because instead of trying to remember all these meetings that you're going to have during the day or the next day or 3 days later, fourth day later, and you're carrying this around in your head all the time, once you put it on Google Calendar, you just remember to look at the calendar in the morning. That's all you need to do. You don't need to keep looking at or keep reminding yourself, oh, I better not forget that meeting 4 days later, right? Because you're going to have clear structure. And this has been my personal experience as well. Like if you block a certain time, you can actually easily stick to those meetings as well. You might actually sometimes overbook yourself. That's perfectly fine. But if you don't do that, it's going to be quite challenging. Okay. So how do you set up your Google Calendar? It's very easy. Everybody's got a Gmail account. If you don't, then create a Gmail account. And that Gmail account is going to have associated to that Gmail account a calendar. Just open it or even download the app on your phone and start playing with it. Start using it. The funny thing about Google Calendar is you can give others access to it. So if you have a personal assistant, if you've got somebody else in your team running your calendar, you can always do that as well, okay? And then you can set up reminders, recurring tasks, all of that. You just put it in the calendar. It becomes super easy, right? Why not use this tool that a lot of other people have used, okay? One of the things that you would also want to do is, generally speaking, if you're doing morning times, lead generation, for example, and this will happen sometimes, like, you might actually end up being in a situation where you might have to replace something that is a regular task that you undertake. If you end up replacing that, we call it erase and replace method. If you erase a very important task because you had to do something else that took its turn, then you replace it in the evening. So you're going to have to remember doing that. If you don't do that, you're going to be behind on the tasks that you need to do. So for real estate agents, specifically speaking, start with understanding that organizing yourself and being ready for success is equally as important as the success turning up on its own. A couple of things will happen, okay? Number one, success will come to you when you're ready. This has been my experience. Number two, success will come to you when you're not ready. But you know what's the sad thing that happens when success comes when you're not ready? Do you know what happens? Do you know what happens? Do you guys know what happens? If success comes to somebody who's not ready, do you know what happens? That success leaves them. Right? It's like the person who's not ready to win the lottery and have like millions and millions of dollars. If it comes to them, it leaves them very fast as well. It's kind of like if you're not ready for things that you want in your life, but you're not prepared to receive them, what's going to happen? They're going to leave, right? It's like if you've got a certain vessel, okay? If your vessel can hold 10 liters of water, 10 liters of water, but now you try to put 20 liters of water in there. Let's say water is a expensive commodity. You're in the middle of the desert, but you've got a vessel that holds 10 liters. And all of a sudden it rains. How much can you save? 10 liters. Beyond that, it's going to seep into the ground. Unless you prepared. How would you prepare? You would dig a pit. You would put stones in the pit. You would waterproof the pit so the water wouldn't seep into the ground, right? You would put date palm trees, etc., etc., etc. Or you would create conditions for a pond to develop. So now when the rainwater comes, you collect 10 liters in your vessel, but you've got this greater, bigger dam that you can collect more water in. Same things with money, same things with success. So if you're not organized and all of a sudden you've got millions of money's coming in, that's fine, it'll come. But very quickly it will leave. And those who know Dubai real estate know that I'm not lying, because we've all seen, I've been down that path as well. Agents who hit it big, they're very successful. They made money. And then they didn't make money, right? Because the moment they made money, they got involved into, being late, partying, enjoying their life, which is fine. You should enjoy your life, but not at the expense of doing the things in an organized way, right? Tony Robbins talks about this. So when the first time he was very, very rich, he was 21, 22. Tony talks about this story. And then all of a sudden, he self-sabotaged himself to start showing up late to meetings, right? Because the story goes like, he liked the money, but his friends that he was hanging around with started seeing him as like, somebody who was a bit of a show off, right? So he would say, hey, I've got this money, let's go on a vacation skiing. And they'd be like, hey, we got work tomorrow. And he's like, no, I'll just pay for the trip. And I'll even pay you for the work that you're going to miss. But what he doesn't realize is they're not ready to enjoy success at his level. So what they would do, or what their attitude was, put him into a sort of depression, where he then started trying to self-sabotage to get rid of all the money. Okay? And how do you get rid of all the money? Because you are successful. People want him now, right? This is like when he was 21, 22. We're talking 40 years ago maybe, because he's over 60 now. So he started showing up late to the meetings, started not doing the work, started being lazy. And what happened is slowly and gradually, obviously, you're going downhill. The money's then now leaving you. So it all comes back to, guys, being organized. So if you become famous, if you become super important, if you become the top agent in Dubai, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to need or want your time. And if you're not organized, and if you can't say no to some people, you will very quickly find out that your time's getting wasted. And that goes no to not just agents and friends, but even clients. Sometimes you're going to have to say no. And if you're one of those agents who's like every time says yes, hey, I'd like to sell a property, can you come over and see me? And the moment they say that and you just off you go, you're going to very quickly find out a lot of people might be wasting your time, right? How do you organize yourself? Put it into the first step is to have a calendar. And then later on, you build filters to who goes into that calendar. So you'll find people want to meet you, right? And you might, in the beginning, say, fine, I'll meet you, put you into my calendar. By the way, it's a good thing to do, right? So if somebody wants to have a meeting with you, you can always say, let me check my calendar. You might check your calendar on the phone, right? But you can always, before you commit to a time, because you don't want to overbook them or double book them, you can always say, let me check my calendar. Sounds good. Sounds professional, right? Now, when you do check your calendar and you give them a slot, that's fine. What you're going to realize is as you get better at the work that you do, you're not going to meet everybody. So then you'll develop filters on who goes into the calendar. How do you develop filters? A lot of CEOs, chairmen, managers, executives, they have this. If you want a meeting, they're going to send you back an email reply why you want this meeting. Is it really necessary to have this meeting with you? Right? So you're going to do the same thing. Before you actually give a meeting to somebody, you're going to pick up the phone and you say, hey, thank you very much, blah, 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 blah. Lovely knowing you. I'd love to meet as well. Just give me a little bit of a background on why we're looking to meet, why you want to meet me. And then if they say, I want to meet you for XYZ reasons, you might end up saying, sure, this sounds like something that I'd be interested in, or I can help you with, or it's something that would benefit both of us, right? There's a very famous Indian filmmaker, and I end with this. He put it, bless him, like he's very, very famous. Okay, he's very famous, but he's one of those directors who's down to earth, or comes across down to earth in his interviews. And I remember on his Instagram post, he said like, anybody who wants to meet me now has to pay like 500,000 rupees Indian. That's it. Like, because he was one of those directors who came up with unique ways to produce movies in India. So everybody who's got a unique new idea wants to go and pitch to him. But obviously, very quickly, he finds out that from the 10 people who come, 2 make sense, and the rest of the 8 are, just, taking his time. But of course, they know somebody who knows somebody who knows him, so they're able to get a meeting. But then his filter is like, if you really truly believe in your idea and you're worth your salt, then paying 500,000 rupees is not a big deal. Why not? He doesn't need 500,000 rupees. The guy's pretty wealthy. But it's a good way to filter out people who don't really need to meet him. Right? Just because you know somebody who knows somebody who knows him doesn't mean that you deserve a meeting. Right? So guys, listen, especially if you're growing as agents, I think it's very important for you guys to develop an organizational system. Start with Google Calendar. It's very, very basic, so easy to start with. It's as easy as using email. And then as you grow, then you'll be able to develop filtering systems to filter out people who either you don't want to meet, they shouldn't be meeting you, you can't benefit them, they may not benefit you, and you could direct them to somebody else who might be able to benefit them. All right. Remember to hit the like, subscribe, and bell icon. Hope this helps. If it doesn't, or if you've got better ideas, put it in the comment section. Bye for now.